6 o'clock on Monday, the 21st of October 2019. Good evening and thank you for tuning in to the English edition of Ora News. My name is Alexandra, bringing you the only daily update of the local Albanian news translated into English. The Democratic Party have demanded that snap elections with the argument that on October 18, Brussels rejected Edi Rama and not Albania. The opposition leader, Lulzim Basha, advised Prime Minister Edi Rama to follow the example of his North Macedonian counterpart and to give the mandate to the Albanian citizens to move the country towards the EU. According to the Democratic Party leader, Lulzim Basha, the government's failures are the cause. In a statement to the media, the opposition leader noted that the problems were reflected in the conditions set by the Bundestag. The difficult economic situation, lack of opportunities resulting from the seizure of institutions, and the inequality of citizens before the law are all factors which have forced Albanians to flee as asylum seekers. Crime and corruption are a concern for the European Union countries. The punishment of buying votes, operating the high courts of the country, and the bringing to justice of the incriminated and corrupted officials at high levels are the non-negotiable demands for opening negotiations. These are problems of the European Union, not simply propaganda, as the current Prime Minister states. There are problems with his government, asserted Basha. According to Basha, the EU member states had no conditions for North Macedonia, but after rejecting negotiations, Prime Minister Zaev called for new elections. The situation for North Macedonia is quite different. No conditions for this country and a nearly unanimous support for the opening of negotiations. However, Prime Minister Zaev submitted his resignation, restored his mandate to the citizens, and the country will go to snap parliamentary elections. On the other hand, our government, which has been rejected by the European countries, continues to refuse to give up power despite the detriment to the Albanian people. We have only one path to the future, and this is the European path, declared Basha. However, even after consulting with members of the SP executive, Prime Minister Edi Rama has no intention of stopping the work of his government. Instead, the Prime Minister of Albania will continue lobbying meetings with sceptical countries, such as a meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron. Not only will they not be bringing the country to snap elections, but the socialist Rama is determined to adopt electoral reform by implementing the OSCE ODIHR recommendations by the end of December, with or without the DP. The mandate of the Electoral Reform Commission ends on November 28, but the SP has proposed two phases, the first being the ODIHR recommendations. Meanwhile, the second phase focuses on a possible change of system and inclusion of emigrant votes in the 2020 elections. Kosovo's candidate for Prime Minister, Albin Kurti, has denounced the European Union's decision to postpone negotiations with Albania and Northern Macedonia. In an exclusive interview for the prestigious British media outlet The Guardian, the head of the Vetvendosia movement says European leaders have forgotten about the importance of the Balkans and the lessons learned from the two world wars. You cannot say first we need internal reform in the EU and then external enlargement. They go hand in hand. Europe is such an important historical project that no one man can be its author, director or leader. We have always seen that when the outgoing EU Commission President, Jean-Claude Juncker, said that there would be no further expansion in the next 5 years, the situation in the Balkans got much worse, said Kurti. The head of the Kosovo nationalist movement also spoke about talks with their LDK ally on establishing the government. He said that the top priority for the next 4 years will be jobs and the liberation of justice from corruption, not necessarily the deal with Serbia. Serbia should face its own past instead of looking at Kosovo and Albania through military binoculars. Serbia needs some introspection. If the Serbs want to start dialogue, they should explicitly stop the slander about our right to statehood, said Kurti. Kurti said he was totally opposed to land swaps with Serbia, an idea pursued this year by Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić and agreed to by Hashim Thaci, the president of Kosovo. Whatever new border you form, there will still be Serbs and Albanians on either side. How can we pretend this could be done peacefully, explained Kurti. The recently announced tender for the marina to be built at the Cape of Rodon has already been granted. The Ministry of Infrastructure and Energy announced the provisional merger of the companies Praslin Investment and RNT, the latter whose shareholders are the citizens Roland Ziu and Renis Troshana. No complaints have been raised regarding the application process. However, it should also be noted that there were in fact no other competitors. According to official data, the value of the investment amounts to 883 million lek, excluding VAT, and the duration of the contract will be 35 years. RTV Ora News has followed this process before, when the start of the tender allowed companies only 30 days to submit the documents from 6 October to 6 November. It was also noted that the documents to be submitted were only being accepted in the Albanian language. In this way, it seems that the ministry has limited the possibility of participation by international companies. Cape of Rodon is one of the most frequented areas by tourists, not only for its natural beauty, but also for its historical values. In announcing the winner, a negotiation period of 60 days is stipulated for the contract and to submit further documentation, including the contract security as required in the bidding documents. It is the same timeframe in which the 10% deposit for the investment, excluding VAT, and the guarantee to proceed with procedures must be paid. The Albanian government has long attracted attention regarding their PPP concessions. This is because they are considered a hidden debt that endangers the state budget, but also because of concerns over the lack of transparency regarding the procedures followed. In an attempt to address these issues, an amendment to the law on unsolicited projects was expected to be implemented as of July 1st. The deadline was delayed by Parliament until October 1st, and despite the President demanding respect for the initially proposed deadline, it's still yet to be initiated. The Confindustry has expressed concern about slowing down the process of establishing the Albania-Kosovo Common Market in practice. In an announcement to the media, the association defending big business interests raised concerns that there are clear attempts by monopoly groups linked to political decision-making in both countries to try to keep the markets closed. Big business considers the creation of the national market very important. It is said that, despite numerous agreements and political appearances between the governments of the two states, not only has no progress been made, but backward steps have been taken. It was noted that a large number of signed intergovernmental agreements have remained unfulfilled and further obstacles added, such as the toll that has been implemented for travelling on the national highway, which links the two countries. North Macedonia will hold new parliamentary elections on April 12 of next year. After the negative response to negotiations by the European Union and following yesterday's consultation with other parties in the presidency, the Prime Minister Zoran Zaev said the date was consensually agreed upon. Our proposal was to go to the elections on December 22 or 29, after which we would ratify the NATO protocol and have a functioning parliament. But the opposition argued against a technical government for 100 days, with the consensus set for April 12, said Prime Minister Zaev. Albanian party leaders appealed with importance that the forthcoming elections be fair and democratic. North Macedonian oppositionist Hristijan Mićoski said the VMRO would win the new elections, but like other rivals, it would not divert from North Macedonia's path to both NATO and the EU. Meanwhile, on the basis of an earlier political accord, Prime Minister Zaev is expected to resign 3 months before the election date and to establish a transitional government with the involvement of the opposition. According to local media, the cabinet was proposed in January to be headed by Social Democrat Oliver Spasovski, who is currently in the role of the Interior Minister. Preliminary polls put the current North Macedonian executive 3% ahead of the VMRO opposition. And that's the news across the country today. Thank you for watching our English edition this evening, and be sure to join us again every Monday to Saturday at 6 p.m. for the latest news from Albania. Once again, on behalf of Ora News, thank you and good night.